Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this family session. We do know that in our worlds, you as parents and families are the key influencers in the life career explorations of your children. So we are so happy that you're joining us here tonight, either in person or online, or we know some of you are waiting for the link after we record this session and share it out. So for wherever you're tuning in, we really know that you'll find some value in what we will be sharing tonight with our guest who's here today with us, JP Michael. I'm going to have, well, I'm Vanessa Lewis. I'm a learning consultant with the school division who works with an incredible team of career teachers from across the school division. And with me is one of them tonight, Miss Amanda Ross, and she's just going to formally introduce our guest speaker.
So I'm Amanda Ross. I'm an itinerant career teacher in 3 communities, Plenty, Elrose, and Kyle. And I had discovered JP's TED Talk and really thought that it was a great connection, and used it kind of to shape some of my career ed lessons, and just wanted to bring him to share with our students and with our communities. And we had 3 really great sessions with students today. And lots of just good conversations happening afterwards about looking at things with a different lens. And so he is here to share with you what he's developed, and what the wisdom he's gained in his experiences. So thank you for joining us tonight, JP.
Thank you, Vanessa and Amanda, for the invitation, and for all the parents who are tuning in now and later. It's exciting to get to speak with you about maybe one of the most important topics in your life, the well-being, success, and happiness of your kids. I have 3 kids myself. They're 5, 3, and 3 weeks old. So they're not quite at the age for career conversations, but believe it or not, career conversations don't start in Amanda's fantastic, career lessons. So many things have happened that shape students from the moment they're born. And a huge part of that are the millions of interactions they have with you. I think Vanessa mentioned that your influence is very important. That's also what the research says. So I'm really excited today to tell you about what's going on in the world of work, what the world needs from your students, and how you can play an important role in setting them up for success. And I think the best way for me to start is by telling you the story of a parent that I helped back in 2010. I've been doing this type of work for a long time. This parent, when I met her, her daughter was 16. She said, my daughter has no idea what she wants to do. And the mom asked, can you help her? I said, yes. This was my first time in a career coaching situation. So I worked with her daughter to help her discover 2 things. Number 1, the impact that she wanted to have in the world. And number 2, how she could get there. And the program went well. We had a few coaching meetings. Her daughter found something that she liked. And at the end of the program, the mom said to me, you'll never understand the profound impact you had on my daughter. Those were big words for me at the time. I thought, wow, like this is important work. And this moment was one of the moments that inspired me to dedicate a decade of my life to helping parents and parents of young people help youth reach their full potential. And when I think about parents, I think they're, what's at the heart of this whole thing, what they want for their kids. They want their kids to be happy, and they want them to reach their potential. And for this to happen, parents can have a very important role. And I've got some slides that I want to share with you today. I titled this From Lost to Found, How Parents Prepare Students for Fulfilling Careers and Lives. And what Vanessa said earlier is what I'm seeing in the research as well. Now, I know that as a parent, it might not feel that way, that your kids are always listening to what you have to say. But the research still shows that parents are the #1 influence on students' careers. And with this power as a parent comes great responsibility. What are we going to say, not say, ask, not ask, that can help shape students' careers? And there are things that we can do, and I'll cover that today. And you might be interested in this topic because you might have read things in the news like this. Half of parents still financially support their adult children. This may concern you. I'm not sure if you're looking forward to this, or that the fact that this happens all the way in their 30s. And I know I'm talking about parenting. This is not a parenting workshop tonight. Our focus is on the career education, and job market factors that are contributing to these issues. So with that in mind, here's who this session is for. Do you think your teen might be unsure of what they want to do after high school? Maybe you and they feel overwhelmed by options. You're concerned about the changing job market. You're unsure about how to support your teen. If so, you're in the right place. Now, if you think that they should be matched to one job title for life, or if you're planning on forcing them to be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, or do you believe that great lives and careers happen by accident, you might not be in the right place. And I want you to stay, even though you might not feel in the right place, because I want to try to change your mind. Give me a chance to do that. It might make a positive difference in how you speak with your kids about careers. And the approach we're going to be talking about today is, I'm going to call it the fulfilled student approach. And it helps students to find an education and career path that is right for them and balances the need for happiness, well-being, and earning potential, making money. The fulfilled student approach is about giving them a sense of satisfaction and accomplishment, not just in their career in 5 to 10 years, but also in their academic life today. Even if that student may feel overwhelmed by a huge amount of choices, some students feel overwhelmed by a lack of choices. Maybe they're underwhelmed. They're also unsure where to start, and maybe they're very busy with their other academic priorities. And the way we'll cover this today is I'll tell you about the 3 main barriers for parents and teens when it comes to these career conversations and education conversations. Second, how we can overcome these. And 3, the specific steps people need to take. Now, so you know my background, I studied industrial organizational psychology. It's a type of psychology that studies the workplace. And I did my undergraduate at the University of Ottawa. I'm speaking to you from Ottawa today. I did my master's degree in the same topic at the University of Manchester in the UK, and that led me to 7 years of human resources consulting. I worked for 2 years in Montreal, 2 years in Pittsburgh in the US, and in this time, I worked as a consultant with all sorts of organizations in different sectors, and I learned from some of the world's most loved companies and some of the world's most hated companies. And I got a lot of insights from them about how careers are changing in the workplace. And it felt to me like it was completely different than from what I learned in high school. And I used these insights to create my own company called SparkPath. Why should you listen to me? I made a tool called the Challenge Cards that's been used by over 70,000 students around the world. Harvard uses the cards, Waterloo, Western, most of the major Canadian universities have the tool that Amanda and Vanessa have equipped themselves with that they'll be using with your kids as well. I wrote a book called The World Needs You, which I believe Vanessa and Amanda are making accessible to you. Huge thank you, Amanda and Vanessa, for this. And I won the award for Outstanding Career Professionals Leader in Canada in 2022, and our work's been featured in different places. So why does all this stuff matter? I think the only reason it matters is because my company SparkPath has helped students say things like this. I feel very confident that will lead me in the right direction to do something that inspires me. That's Sydney who said that. I remember the first day I met Sydney, she did not have this confidence at the beginning. She had the opposite. She had a lack of confidence. She felt lost. I don't know if this is like your son or your daughter, but that's how she felt. For Thashar, it was a bit different. He said, what the challenge cards allow you to do is this massive introspection, and you look inwards into yourself. These interviews are available on YouTube, by the way, and I did them 2 or 3 years after they had these career conversations, this career coaching, to see like where are they now. And I can tell you, Thashar didn't start off as a massively introspective person. Maybe he started off with, at the opposite of that range. And I think it would help me if you took a moment to tell me about what it's like for you as a parent. I know for me, this I'm a decade into doing this type of work, and it's been filled with I don't know a better word to use than failure. I use the word failure in a really positive way. What do I mean by failure? I mean saying the wrong things. I mean encouraging students to look in the wrong places. I mean getting feedback from schools and students about what didn't work in our approach and iterating on that over and over and over to be where we are today. We have helped a lot of schools and students, but we're still in the process of learning. We learn from students, we learn from schools, and we learn from parents. So I'm going to ask you to tell me about you, and I'm going to give you access to a QR code to be able to do that. Here's what I'm asking for you to do. Would you be willing to tell me about what it's like for you as a parent to help a student choose a path after high school? I've got 2 or 3 questions, I think, in this little survey. I'm going to copy paste this URL in the chat for those of you at home. There's a couple of you, I think, in person, and you can scan this QR code using your phone. I think I might hear Vanessa or Amanda. Like, I don't know if you want to demo this, Amanda, in the room, but you can use your phone's camera app and hover even at a far distance over this QR code, or maybe you zoom in, and then it's going to show you a link just automatically, and you click that link, and then you can fill out this little survey. As a thank you, I always for participating in the survey, I always like to give away a prize. So I'm giving away I think a deck of challenge cards or a free coaching session, just as an encouragement to participate. But I'm also literally going to read your responses. I'll keep them anonymous, by the way, but I'm going to read your responses right now live, just to make sure I'm covering what's important for you in this session. So let me unshare this for just a moment. In the spirit of helping people who are online, I'm going to give you the URL so you can put that right into your browser, and that should be the fastest way for you to do it. Okay, so online we've got Dia, Jocelyn, Jasmine, Michelle. If you want to try that link, and maybe as a favor to me, if that link works for you, give me a little thumbs up or a like or a notification in this chat just to let me know that's working for you, please.
Yes, here live in Rosetown, the team is able to get it live, and they're just submitting some answers right now.
Beautiful.
And those
Thank
online,
you.
if you are able, please feel free to engage as well.
Great. I'll give you a couple, maybe a minute to do that. It's very, very short. Got a great response from a parent I'll share right away. I've never done this before. How simple and straightforward is that? Your son or your daughter, they've never done this before. You've never done this before. It can make it challenging to be a guide for somebody else's process when you've never done it before. Somebody else says, there's so many options. It's exciting, but overwhelming. I think we'll double down on that in today's session. We're going to quantify what we mean by so many options to be more specific. And then we'll say exactly how do you navigate this overwhelming number of options. Someone says their teen has no idea what to do. I've seen that a lot. How do you go from zero, no idea, to something? And not just something interesting that can capture someone. Here's somebody else, lots of options to narrow down. See how we have both issues here? We have too many options and too few options. It turns out that they both need a little bit of the same thing, even though they're coming from they're both coming from a different problem. So that's great. Please keep those answers coming in. That's really useful for me to know. And I'm going to keep reading those as they come in. So here's what I'd like to do next, and I think this might help articulate some of the challenges I've seen other parents have over the years. I'm going to talk about the 3 barriers that I see most often in the way of becoming what I call a fulfilled student. Now, what would I say first? Okay, let's call the lack of options. Lack of options. I have no idea what I want to do. Some of you have heard your teens literally say this, right? Second obstacle, apathy. Some students say, why now? You know, how do I do this? Can I delegate this? Can someone just tell me what to do? This is one of the major obstacles I see. And third, no process. I've never done this before. Where do I even start? These to me are the three biggest obstacles I've seen. And here's how to tackle each one. What we want to do for a lack of options is to help students find a spark. There are different creative ways to do this. We're going to show you one very creative way to do this during today's session that you can take back and use right away. When it comes to apathy, we want to take a student from apathetic to empowered. They need to drive. Even though some of the parents on this call, you have 10, 20, 40-year careers, you have a lot of information and experience. Despite that, we still want the student to drive, because if they're not driving, things are not going to get done, and they're not going to learn about themselves along the way. And last, for the process, they need to use a proven process, step by step, that they can follow. So what do all these things mean? Well, first of all, once we help a student find their spark, we need to do that by broadening their horizons. Most students, they know of only a handful of job options that are out there, and they're not aware of all the great opportunities that exist. As part of this, they need to increase their self-awareness. Who are they? What are their strengths, values, and interests? What makes them unique, what makes them different, is a huge driver for their success. Because if we want them to be happy in their studies and in their work, it has to be aligned with their strengths, with what they like to do. And here, they're not like their friends necessarily. They're not like everybody else. They have to find out how they're unique. And that's going to result in some tailored paths to them. It's not enough to find the one right generic, high-paying path, high-paying job. It has to fit in with who they are. That's what the world of work needs. Now, what kind of proven process do we want? We want one that's easy to use, that we understand, and that a young person can understand, even if they're 16, 15, 14, or 13. Here's a big difference. We want to start with purpose, the impact they want to have on the world, not a job title that they want to fit into. And all these insights in the process needs to lead to action. They need to do things, try things, explore, not just reflect on them on their own in their room. So finally, this process needs to be student-driven. They need to have personalized support along the way, and it needs to be based on their strengths. These are all things that will drive them to be empowered as part of their exploration process. So I know this is a lot of theory, but I wanted to summarize the most important ideas around this process. And now I'd like to make it come to life with a story. I'm going to use Anna's story. Anna's a student that I met when she was in high school. I was living in Pittsburgh at the time. Her mom came to see me and said a similar message that you've heard. She has no idea what she wants to do. And what I did with Anna is I helped her look beyond a job title. I said, Anna, we can't start with job titles. And here's why. If I think about Anna, I might wonder how many job titles she knows about. What about your kids, by the way? How many job titles do they know about? Do they know 10? You know what I mean by job title, right? Like doctor, lawyer, farmer, engineer, plumber, teacher. Maybe they know 20, maybe they know 50. I'm not sure if they know 100. My next question for you is, how many jobs are there out there? How many job titles exist in the world? In my research, there are at least 20,000 job titles today. This gap between what they know and what's out there is only one of the problems with using the job title as the central part of career exploration. There's too many to keep track of. Even the pros on your team, Amanda and Vanessa, they can't pretend like they are going to memorize the 20,000 jobs and learn every day about the new jobs being created. I love this stuff also, and I don't want to pretend like I'm going to know the 20,000 job titles. The ones that we do know tend to focus on prestige, great salary, maybe famous TV characters. And we know for certain that job titles will change, or some of them don't even exist yet. And when I was working in human resources, I met with the folks that were writing job titles. They were writing job descriptions, and they were struggling. They told me it was hard for them because things are changing so quickly within their organizations that they can't keep up. So here's my invitation for you today, just tonight. Play along with me, please. What if for a moment we let go of the job title? Not completely, we'll come back to it. But what if instead we started this conversation with challenges, problems, and opportunities? Here's what I mean. Can you tell me which challenge you'd rather work on? Let's put away our kids and teens for a second and just focus on you. Would you rather invent new biotechnology or promote healthy living? Okay, now you've picked something. Let's do another one. Would you rather improve mental health or design the future of transportation? This time, can you think about what made you choose it? And I'd love to hear from a volunteer either in the chat section or in person. Vanessa, Amanda, maybe you can find a volunteer, or maybe you could volunteer to tell me what made you choose that challenge. What did you like about it? Why is it interesting for you? Any answer here is a good answer, and I'd love for someone to volunteer.
Yes, we do have somebody in the audience here in Rosetown who is willing to speak to this on this slide. Can you hear that, JP?
No, you'll have to play it back for me.
Okay, she's choosing to pick design the future of transportation because it is fun. It sounds exciting and it sparks her interest.
Okay, so just by asking, thank you, by the way, for volunteering for that.
Okay,
So
and we also have the other in the room who's on the left with the mental health. Yeah, and why? Impactful, and it directly connects to a person, can make a difference.
That's great. Thanks
If
for both
anybody
of our.
online cares to join in as well, feel free to put something in the chat and we'll see what your choices are as well.
I think I need to, funnily enough, I need to stop sharing to look at the chat and go back and forth. Anyways, thank you to our brave volunteers in the audience. I love that you shared that, by the way. So just by asking someone about the problem they want to solve, I found out something about what excites them, what's fun for them, what gives them a spark. Just by asking about someone's favorite challenge, I found out what someone thinks is important. The fact that they want to have a direct connection with people. Don't these sound like values? What if we could find out about people's values by asking them about their favorite problems to solve? What if we could find out about their strengths, the ways they want to contribute? What if we could find out about the story they want to create about themselves, what they believe about the world, their opinions? There's all this raw material that students need to write their own career stories that can come from this exercise. So we're at a key point of the presentation because what we've discovered, and which I think you already knew, but I want to emphasize the importance of, these reflections, these insights, these decisions, this exploration happens through conversations. Why? What? Tell me more. And this is where some of the insights can come out. The way that we did it might be different than what we've talked about before, because in this approach, I started with a challenge first. That's not the traditional approach. Traditionally, we've asked people, well, listen, if you want to think about your future, think about your favorite class in high school. Do you like math? If you like math, then you can study accounting in university. If you study accounting and you graduate, you can get a job as an accountant. Very simple, right? Linear. And then you can get hired by a firm of accountants. But 5 or 10 years in, you actually can start thinking about, what am I doing as an accountant? What's the challenge I'm solving? Maybe you help companies pay as little amount of tax as possible. I don't know, maybe that excites you. Maybe it doesn't excite you. Maybe you hate it. It took you so long to get there. What we can do instead is invite students to flip this model. What if they started by looking at challenges first, and then they work backwards to find the companies working on those challenges, the people who work there, what are their jobs, and what did they have to learn to be able to do that? You see how we flip things? Then they can connect their day-to-day life, learning about writing and reading and math and gaining knowledge, their classes, all the way to their challenge. Like, they will figure out, oh, I'm learning something today that's going to help me contribute more to the challenge I care about. There's a lot of innovative schools that have been using this approach, not in the careers class, but in the biology class, in the art history class, in all sorts of courses to show the relevance of the curriculum. Do you understand what I mean? They're saying, listen, you're going to get value out of this class that's going to help you contribute to a challenge you care about in the world. And that's how teachers are making the connection between their curriculum and real world problems, which is very motivating for students, because you may have heard students say, why do I need to learn this? Now we've got a way to prove it to them, to showcase how our learning matters because it connects with problems that they might want to solve. So can we pause here? And I'd love to hear from you. How might this way of looking at things, a challenge mindset, help your team? Now that I know that we've got some active participants in the room, I might rely on you to share your ideas with me. And the floor is still open for anyone in the chat to either raise your hand, share through audio, or share just by typing in. So the question is, how might a challenge mindset help your team? Go again.
I think this way of exploring themselves would help my son feel, what did I say?
Relieved.
Relieved.
Yeah. So just to repeat, in case it's not catching.
That one I heard
she's just
100%.
okay.
I heard
Perfect.
100%. So I'm gonna ask. I think our audio is great. So I'm gonna ask a follow-up question. I hear that one so much, the relief piece, and it always comes after that slide where I flip the model. Can you tell me why, what made you think of that? Why is it, do you think relief comes up so often? Because it's one I hear often at this exact moment.
Definitely doesn't want to be a nurse. I'm a nurse. And he said the only two other occupations are engineer and farmer, which my husband did both. So he has voiced that to me. So we definitely don't have the list of 20,000 in our house.
Yeah. And it's too hard. So thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate that. It's too hard to start at a list. It's too boring to start at an alphabetical list. I think by starting to say, hey, tell me what you care about. And I've got a very specific way of doing that, which I'm going to explain. Then all of a sudden it unlocks new opportunities. And I think the word relief is great because so many students I speak to when I'm doing coaching, they feel trapped. They feel trapped by a narrow list of occupations. They feel trapped by this idea that if they're going to do a job that pays well, they're not going to be happy. And this shows them, you know what? There are more options than we think, and they're easier to discover than we might have thought. This process of reverse engineering, like challenge, company, people, learning, I've done it countless times using easy tools to use online, and it always generates something we never would have thought about before. And that's exciting when a student sees it proven, like, oh, we've just proved it. Like, you found real company names, real education programs. Then it gets really exciting. Jasmine in the chat said it gets them to look at it a different way and it's less overwhelming. Goes along with what their interests are. Yeah, that's great. Great description for both. I want to add a couple things here. Maybe some questions I get from parents, and I know we're going to move to questions soon enough, in maybe 10 minutes or so. But one question I get from parents is, what if I'm unsure if my teen wants to do this? I don't know if that's something that anyone that's listening today has felt this, but I see that a lot. I think that's part of the expertise. I mean, for Vanessa and Amanda, it's got to be fun to work with that really motivated student that has a big dream and they get to unlock them to new levels. That's fun. But the Amanda and Vanessa's that I've met with, and I've met a lot over the years, they have another expertise, like a specialized expertise in helping reluctant teens do this, right? Helping anxious, disinterested teens, helping apathetic teens. So my answer to this question is that if you make this an engaging, interactive process where they take the lead, it dramatically increases their motivation. from I'm not interested, I don't think this is relevant, to let me give it a shot. And different students need different levels of this at different times, but I can tell you the wrong time to start. The wrong time to start is the last semester of grade 12. You know what I mean? It's too late. Before that, university applications, starting this process from scratch a week before university applications, that's a tough sell. It just puts more pressure on everyone involved. Grade 11, always a fantastic year. More proactive is grade 10. The schools that do this in grade 9, the students are getting a better understanding of why they're in school in the first place. They're already starting to think about how they're different than other people. They're hearing powerful, inviting messages like the world needs you. I decided to call my book The World Needs You because I felt like a lot of the students I was meeting felt the opposite. They were coming to me talking about how the job market's competitive. They're not sure if they're going to make it. There's a fear of failure. To me, it felt like they really believed like the world didn't need them. They didn't articulate that, but they behaved and carried themselves that way. And I feel completely different than they do. I want to invite them to realize the world needs you. There are so many broken things to fix, so many problems to solve, so many challenges to meet, so many opportunities to take advantage of. And that's our golden opportunity as parents, as career advisors. We get to invite them to participate and contribute to making the world a better place. And I want to be careful if I say making the world a better place, the scale of the ambition of the student, whether they want to end extreme poverty or improve their local park, that doesn't matter to me. I'm agnostic to the problem they want to solve. I'm agnostic to the scale of it. That's not what matters. What matters is that they pick something with which they want to make a difference. They don't even need to choose one thing for the rest of their life. They just need to find that one thing that hooks them where they want to explore more. I'll share a story about how that happened in my career. When I was 15, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to play in the NBA, professional basketball player. Newsflash for everybody listening, I didn't make it. I didn't make it, okay? But my passion for basketball, it led me to other things. Like I discovered something called sports psychology. And I'm like, oh, what's that? It's about giving athletes mental skills so they can perform better. That was cool for me. Like, even though I'm not the tallest, most athletic, not the most gifted, um, maybe I can perfect my mental skills. So then that's one of my drivers to study psychology. I wanted to learn about sports psychology and solve the problems of giving athletes better mental skills. So I got there and I learned about a new type of psychology, industrial organizational psychology. That was about helping teams perform better at work. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I'm even more hooked by that. Let me go do some more research into that. And that's where I ended up spending a lot of time. But once I got there, one of the realities of my work is that I needed to support all sorts of different organizations. I worked in Northern Ontario in gold mines on site. I worked in banking. I worked in paint stores doing leadership training. And I needed to quickly come up with an understanding of what these companies did if I didn't want to look like a fool in front of them. And I only got the experience by looking like a fool in front of many of them to eventually decide, like, how can I figure out how I can integrate myself and understand their reality and contextualize my leadership training to them? Well, surprise, surprise, I needed to figure out the problem they were trying to solve. That was my window into their world, the fastest way I could learn about what they were doing. What problem is the company trying to solve? The department they work in, what are they responsible for? This individual person I'm meeting with, which part of that do they own and contribute to? It gave me a new language, a new way of understanding people. And since then, I've used it in the same way to talk to people on a Saturday night that I meet at a party. I want to understand what they do. I want to understand it through the lens of a problem to solve. And the reason I tell you this example is because you're going to go back and have this conversation with a teenager that has virtually no work experience compared to you, no context. So how do we make things extremely simple? Well, you can tell by the, let's call them stylistic choices that I made, that we need to make it extremely simple. So I'm not sure what the visibility is for you in the room, but one of the challenge cards says communicate ideas and emotions. It's short, it's punchy. Build the school of the future. Redesign the healthcare system. Maybe I'll give you one more. Manage the planet's waste. I've got create new food and food systems. So all of these ideas need to be extremely accessible to students. That's why I recommend starting with challenges. That's why I created this deck of challenge cards. That's why I'm thrilled that Vanessa and Amanda invited you to have these conversations, because we're fighting I like to call it fighting a big fight. And what exactly are we fighting against? You're fighting against a lot of other advice that your kids are getting. But I want to talk to you about a few of these because they might come up as objections in your conversations with them. Number one, follow your passion. Well, maybe your son or your daughter is going to say the same thing I said. I want to play in the NHL. Where do you go from there? There's not a lot of room, right? For some other students, they'll say follow your passion means I need to know exactly the one job I want to do for the rest of my life today. Before having met anyone doing this job, before knowing what that job does every day, before seeing what it looks like, before feeling what it feels like. That may not be the right approach. We're preparing kids that are going to have 40 or 50-year careers. It's likely that there's going to be a lot of change in that time. So follow your passion may be misleading for a lot of these students. Now, I'm not saying don't do something you're great at. Don't do something you enjoy. I'm just saying leading with your passion, it is not likely to help those students who are struggling with these questions the most. Next, they're too young, 14, 15. They have no experience in the world of work. It's normal. Let's just wait and see. That might have worked. I mean, I know a lot of people that was the exact formula, and through serendipity, luck, and chaos, they were led to an incredible life, and they're rich, and it's working out fine. They're doing something that they like. The problem is that's the minority of people, not the majority of people. The majority of people are struggling if they wait till they're 25 or 30 to ask themselves real questions about what they want, to start this process of learning about who they are, how they're different, the impact they want to have on the world. For most people, that recipe doesn't work. People quit school in post-secondary, they drop out without a degree. A lot of people are underemployed, the stats are very high, and they're lacking direction. So it's my preference and recommendation to inoculate early on against these issues by having these positive, engaging conversations about what's possible. I think this goes to the next point. I didn't know what I wanted to do and I turned out fine. I will not argue with this someone's life story. In fact, I would even encourage that we celebrate the role of luck, happenstance, and chaos. That those three topics are a big part of the book. I just want us to catch, prepare, and be proactive about those things. We want to integrate them. This doesn't mean we do no career planning, no career conversations at all. It just means there's a space for each one of these things. Just letting them figure out on their own, I think, is in the same category, because for some people, this advice will work. But again, for the vast majority of students, it will not. I meet with the students that drop out. Sometimes I meet them a year or two after rock bottom. I know that sounds dramatic, but I just want to be candid about the parents that I meet, right? Like, it's one thing to have that first argument or fight and that first set of tears, where, we're not on the same page. The parent wants one thing, the student wants another thing. But after 2 years, the consequences are bigger about, on that kid's self-esteem, on the family dynamics. And I think for me, I'm driven by the mission of, like, I wish I could have met that family 2 or 3 years before, or maybe 5 years before, so we wouldn't get to this stage. Because again, I think the world needs these students. I don't want them to go through this terrible, discouraging process of feeling lost, not being in the right program, dropping out, and then all of a sudden they feel like they won't have an impact on the world. And I think it's the same category for this last one. They should just go to school, go to college, go to university. They'll find a path there. That works for some, not for all students. So I just gave you a list of questions. I hope I didn't steal any of the questions maybe you wanted to ask. But I think we should pause here. I have a few more things I want to share. but I'd love to know from the group questions, comments, or reactions to what I said. What you might tell me at this stage is, here's why I think that won't work for my son or my daughter. And that's fine. I love those types of questions. And my job is not to convince you otherwise. You know your kid much better than I do. But I may share something I learned from a parent who may have dealt with something similar, in case that's useful for you. So whether it's Jasmine in the chat or anybody else in person, I'd love to know at this stage questions, comments, reactions to what I've shared.
Quiet now.
Mhm.
What about you, Amanda? You're hearing about this for the 4th time today. Am I at least on track? Am I making sense? Is there a good thread in what I'm saying, or are you just fed up of hearing the same message over and over?
No, I think there is, and every time I've heard, I've thought of a different student, where you'll say something and someone will come to mind and be like, oh, maybe that'll help this kid get what they need. Because I mean that's what a lot of my job feels like, is like random aha moments when I'm nowhere near the kid and I have to write it down and try and connect with them again later. So yeah, like there's a lot of things, a lot of examples where I was like, oh, that might make sense to this student who really struggles with this.
Good,
Um,
I'm glad.
yeah.
I try to put myself in
Yeah.
your shoes, like the diversity in people that you help. Like, what's it like to help someone who's failing out of high school classes and someone who's excelling, and it turns out that they both need you. Like those students who are excelling at schools, turns out it's not that straightforward to translate academic success to career success. They need conversations like you, like the ones you have with them, to be able to do that. So I'm going to read Jasmine's comment. It's been helpful looking at it from the challenge approach, knowing not to look at it from the job title. Yeah, I certainly don't think we live in a world of work where we're eliminating job titles and those won't exist and everybody it's all ambiguous. My suggestion though is not starting there. Our entire field of career development has made tremendous progress when it comes to helping people raise their self-awareness, when it comes to finding more ways to do career interventions. Our lens into the labor market has stayed the same for far too long. If as career professionals we analyze the labor market through the lens of a job title, our tool is too limited to understand what's really going on, what's behind this. The labor market's not driven by job titles. The labor market is driven by problems to solve. So as I wrap up, maybe the best next step I can recommend is there's a couple of them actually. Number one is you have access to a book that Vanessa and Amanda purchased for you called The World Needs You. This was written not for your teen, but for you. It's for the caring adult in their lives. And if you're interested in the science and the research and the evidence, and you can go find that in the book. But what you'll also find is a practical tool guide of literally what to say, what to do when it comes to having these conversations with your teen. And if you find that's a useful resource for you, my ask would be, would you be willing to leave us a review on Amazon to tell other people what you liked about it? That would mean a lot to me. I'm also going to type my email address in the chat if there's parents that want to follow up or have a follow-up question. It's jp@mysparkpath.com. So that would be one way to follow up. And I want to say a big thank you to both of you. I know you had a huge day, Vanessa and Amanda, setting up these 80 vendors and these 55 presentations. For me, it's a pleasure to get to be part of it, and I'm thrilled about what you're going to do. And the parents on this call that are watching the recording, the parents that are not even aware that this is going on, they're going to benefit because you have access to the challenge cards. You have access to it for years. You're doing this great work and you're doing it with their students. So a big thank you for all your efforts.
Well, thank you, JP. We really appreciate you joining us late this evening, especially late for you. And I don't know, your message is really speaking to me. I just feel that a lot of what you've shared is very aligned with what our team, some of us who have been at this quite a while, trying to support students, you know, from early years, middle years, you know, right through to graduation. In just the work that we do, which is not the important work that all the parents are doing, but just very aligned, like that idea of it being a life career, like that it's all about who you are and who you want to be, and trying to help students figure out who they are and what their hopes and dreams are, and find some maybe first steps, you know, that they could take to start on that pathway of creating that preferred future that they want for themselves, and us as parents, you know, want them to find as well. So knowing that change is constant and learning is ongoing. So just really appreciate your message tonight. We are very excited to have these beautiful books. They've got such a nice cover, nice and soft, and we'll get them to all of those here, and the participants that have joined online, as well as into our schools and classrooms and with our career team. So thank you very much for everything.
You're welcome. Glad it's aligned, and thanks again.
Thank you.
Any other
All right.
questions or comments?
No, I feel like this is a time that can be very easily overwhelming.
Yeah.
So, right along with the name of your email with a spark, it starts small and it has to start within. So, good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
Take care. Good night.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks everybody online for joining in. We will be transitioning into just some casual conversations of our team. So if you wish to stay online, feel free. I'm just going to stop the recording.